Welcome back to Education Matters. We're going to continue our discussion about the history of segregated schools in North Carolina, and particularly here in Wake County. And joining us now are two former students of some of those schools that we were just talking about. We have Deborah Beckwith. She is a former student at both Holly Springs and Apex Consolidated. You also were a teacher's assistant here in Wake County Schools. I think you did that for about 12 years. Yes. And Mary Linda Hall Jordan, former Apex Consolidated High School student, and you're currently a juvenile court counselor. So thank you both for being here. Yes. Ms. Beckwith, I want to start with you. One of the reasons why you heard Dr. Martin say that he wants to do this is to document the history. And honestly, I just want to hear some stories from you about some of the teachers you had, because that's one thing about public schools and public education, regardless of at what period of time, there were teachers that made a big difference. So tell me about them.
Right. I'm going back to Holly Springs Elementary School because that's where that was my beginning, and there was no kindergarten there. There was just 1st through 8th grade. And I attended that school, and I know I did have a favorite teacher. Her name was Mrs. Hunt, and her husband was actually the principal there, Professor Hunt. And then when he died, then we had another principal there. But Miss Hunt was like a mother to me. She kind of like embraced me, and maybe because I was from a large family. I'm from one of 10 children. And she kind of like embraced me, and then she had me do her writing and stuff because she said I had a very good handwriting and things like that. But she was like just a mother figure. She even paid for me to go to summer camp one year. And I know not even her, I'm sure a lot of the other teachers, they took money out of their pockets to buy even clothes and stuff for kids and things like that. And we had good teachers at that school. And during that time, I guess the early years, I wasn't aware that there was like the 2 different schools, but because we were just taken care of and everybody cared about each other, we was like family. Everybody, even other parents would take care of you, and if you did something wrong, they would correct you, and then they would tell your parent. Then when you get home, you'll be in more trouble.
Well, that's what I said. We were talking before we started shooting. I said, you know, back then, I know when I was in elementary school, if I got in trouble at school, I got in trouble at home. It wasn't any question about that.
Right.
That's one of the things I wanted to get across about these teachers, because I hear, I mean, of course, there's the academic excellence, and they were preparing, but it was about the relationships that the teachers had with the students. Tell me about some of your experiences.
Okay. Basically, I was at Apex Consolidated from the very beginning, and one of the biggest things I remember is when my father passed, and school teachers came to our house, and it was shocking, first of all, but my mom expected it. And I know recently I had a child that was on my caseload whose mother passed away, and I went to her funeral, and I was so surprised that there were none of her teachers or no one from her school was there. And when I mentioned it, it was like, what do you mean? They're not supposed to be here. But the teachers were the kind of people that uplifted us. Holidays. I had a teacher once that made me believe that I could sing. Miss Williams used to tell me that I could sing, and she would encourage me to sing. I know now that I cannot sing, but it doesn't matter, because when Miss Williams said...
But she believed in you, so you could.
Absolutely, yes. So I sang in a school play, and I did a solo. So I guess I did okay, I'm not sure, but I believe I did because Miss Williams said that I could.
Now, you were showing me some pictures, and I wanted to ask, when we were talking earlier, like, I mean, how aware were you of about any differences about what was going on? I mean, Dr. Martin mentioned, I mean, look, we just know historically that the segregated black schools were less resourced. I mean, was that something that you noticed looking back? I mean, could you tell?
Yeah. I do. I mean, I could notice it because I know we got secondhand books, and I know when we would get the books, we had books given out to you at the beginning of the school year, and there would be other kids' name in those books, and we had to erase their names out, and we wondered, where did these books come from? Why are these used books? And then we were told we were getting the books from the white schools. Those are the books that we received. They was all used, and some of them had torn pages, and and written all in. And so we was aware, but I don't think we was neglected because of the teachers. They put so much pride in what you did, and they encourage us to do the best you can do. And so we still got that love that I don't think that the teachers, that the kids get into schools now. I don't think it's the closeness like the family that we had back then. And I think we're missing that.
Did you, I mean, you're obviously both familiar with sort of, you know, what's going on in the schools now and what's being taught. I mean, what was the curriculum like? You talked about singing. I mean, you know, sort of what were you taught? Like, what were the kind of classes? I mean, was it very similar to what we think about now, reading and writing and arithmetic? And
I think it was. You know, we had math teachers, math classes, reading classes, geometry, history classes, which was my favorite, and but we had the extracurricular activities also, although we didn't refer to them as that. They were just part of the education that we were receiving. And we learned so much. We put on plays, we created posters, and we used our imagination a lot because we had to create stories based on the history of the math that we were working on at that particular time. And no one was left behind. No one was separated that I know of, you know, the AG.
Oh, so like the tracking, like we call now,
yeah.
everybody was being taught to lift everyone up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, just from a historical perspective, I mean, I guess sort of what was the context of going, like when you were in high school, sort of where were we in sort of the civil rights struggle?
My class was the last graduating class before they integrated all the schools, which was class of 1970. And then after 70, that's fall of 70, all the schools had to integrate. And during that time, there was classes that was offered at the white school that some of our black kids went over to the white high school to go, and that was like that would have been 68, 69 years that they could go take those classes. So there was classes that we didn't have that was not offered to us at our school. They were just like across the street, well, about a mile down the road where there was a white school. And we also just had one foreign language, and those were some of the classes you could get those extra classes at the white school that they didn't offer at our school. And I think that was the very beginning during the high school years when we know that they had a lot of things to offer their kids that we didn't have at our school. So that was kind of like a slap in the face then. I guess as you got older.
Yeah.
But during those younger years, you know, we didn't feel that.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like you said, it's sort of like family. I mean, sometimes a lot of us
Right.
have things going on in our families when we were little, and then we realize later that our parents were kind of protecting us from things.
Yes.
You showed me some pictures, but I mean, some things were changing. You mentioned the parade. Again, you were at Apex Consolidated.
Well, for years in Apex, we weren't allowed to participate in the Christmas parade that actually went through downtown Apex. So we actually had the Christmas parade in front of the school, Apex Consolidated High School. It was like, you know, buildings, and then there was the street road, as we called it. And our parade, that was what our parade. It was short because the road was short, but we had the Santa Claus, we had our majorettes, and we had the band. We had pretty much whatever a parade consisted of, and we were ecstatic. Now,
Do you remember about what year that was, the first time that your school was invited to participate?
I'm thinking this was probably 68. I think this was about 6 to 8.
Well, these stories are really important, and that's why we wanted to have you on. We really appreciate you sharing them with us, and we appreciate what Wake County Schools is doing to help document it. So,
Absolutely, appreciate that.
but thank you so much for being here, both of you.
Thank you.
After the break, this week's final word.